We will have a round of introductions. In the first place, I'm very happy to see and have everyone physically. It's an incredible opportunity to finally engage with each other physically. And today, in this afternoon, we will be talking about business transformations that businesses are going under during wartime. And we will be also talking about what transformation awaits us after war. Let me introduce our panelists. My name is Tetiana Lukyniuk. I'm the moderator. I work in the office of Kyivstar, and our office has also undergone a certain degree of transformation. But today we'll be talking about numerous businesses. Our panelists today are Borys Shestopalov, co-owner and managing partner of HD Group. Please give you a round of applause. Igor Nikonov, the founder of the CAN Development Building Company. Yevhen Kahanovskyi, head of public sector in Ukraine at Microsoft Multi-Country. Lyudmyla Novak, communications director of INTERPIPE. Dmytro Zozulia, advisor to the chairman of the board MHP, and Vasyl Danylyak, Chief Executive Officer of OKKO Group of companies. Well, we have fuel, agrarian business, metallurgy, telecoms, an international IT company, so we will have loads of what to talk about. We have about an hour. And let me start by saying we will be talking about the transformations that businesses have been undergoing starting with February 24th. However, we are a business front, and we know how significant it is to be a business front and to keep up the country from this end. But we also have a front line, and let's see what greetings have been sent to us from one of the fascinating places in Kiev. Hello, everyone. We want to greet and welcome all of the participants of the Kiev International Forum. We are Lviv Kherson together with the Guard of Patrol, and we wish you all to work well to make sure that the business helps to revive Ukrainian economy. Now I'm turning the floor to our heroes. Strong health. We are the Patrol Police of Kherson and the Patrol Police of Ukraine. Businessmen, we are inviting you to come to our city. The city needs to be liberated from the Russian invasion. Welcome to Kherson. I support that. Business, get the best of conditions. Businesses above all. Business and Ukrainians are together. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes. Kherson so far is just admits the people with the residential permits, and with special permits it allows you to come in, but we have already put up several towers, so there is communication with Kherson from Kiev. But let us talk about your businesses. Since February 24th, our businesses have been undergoing transformation more than once. Let us start with the business that began to suffer from day one, fuel. Vasyl, what transformation has taken place with you, and what's taking place in your area and your company, respectively? Good afternoon. February 24th, when the war burst out, our business rapidly sensed, well, at least was one of the first to sense that everything was changed all over. Because if you talk about our portfolio of supplies like oil and oil products, petrochemicals, all of the petrochemical products that we used to have would come from the north, a bit from the east, and very few from the sea, and hardly anything from the west. That is to say, we used to have some contracts back in 2010, but Western contracts were always more expensive, and no supplier from the west would bring anything in Ukraine. Those were very, very small scopes, something for the Transcarpathia region, that's all. Respectively, the whole market was confronted with the situation that from day one and overnight, all of the supplies went down to nil. Only some of the prepayments before 24th, or maybe some of the goods that had been undersupplied, would be brought to Ukraine, and everybody began to target the Western supplies. This was the greatest challenge, and in fact, the first month of our operations was focused on changing the logistics of our supplies all over. This was the very first and most important challenge, not only for our company, I believe, but for the whole industry. And approximately within 3 months, this challenge was overcome. It was corrected, and as of June, consumers were able to see a substantial improvement, and during the following months it felt as if nothing had happened and everything was just, the business was going normal. So the logistics was the greatest challenge that called for transformation. Interestingly, concerning developers, it's a drastically different challenge. So Igor, what do people do when they understand that their house and home stops being a home or a house? Well, I will start by saying that the beginning of the war was not just a shock. The people who were intending to buy something, they had to make an instantaneous decision whether to buy or not because they were worried, anxious. But if my memory doesn't fail me, it was just 2 months. Then we were wavering, feeling hazy. The whole team was on it. The whole team was being paid, and we pretended that we were working, but there was nothing much to be working on. But we decided in April that we would again resume our operations in April, because in the first place we had our obligations to investors, and you still have to maintain your company. And if people are not working, then business cannot run that way. So the decision was taken, and in May we launched operations again. Not too many people are buying flats, I'll be frank with you, but people are doing this on an installment plan. Some 85% of people still pay in installments. People still believe that in the first place we will finish constructions and developments. And secondly, they understand that they have already made their investments and we are not going to get their money back instantly. So virtually talking in volumes, we froze only very new projects where not a single flat had been sold. Where something had been sold, we are still working on it. We're building, completing constructions. And the rate of construction is in no way lower than it used to be. Of course, these power shortages that we have and rolling blackouts, something that is stopping us, but we still work to the best of our ability, and I think we will complete that. Wonderful that you have said that everything will be good, but another question is transformation. Did you have to change your business as usual, any business practices? Yes, slightly, but it's true. Some 3 or 4 months, we kept our employees in the full scope, but then we began to reduce, to slash our employees because there was not enough employment for them. 5, 6, 7 months. So this was the time when you can maintain the workforce as usual, but then you will simply start losing money and go bankrupt. But about 70 to 80% of the company still remains. People keep working. Some processes had to be adjusted in terms of logistics, for example, running, because some of the employees, like women with children, they ended up abroad, but they still continue working online, and the communication has increased remotely. So that's something that we had to change. The rest remains as it was. Thank you. Borys, let me take it now to your industry, which is probably one of the most important in Ukraine. Additionally, our land is suffering, and you do an agrarian business. So what did you have to change in order to support your business and its capacity to survive, to make ends meet? Thank you very much. I will not be trying to speak in a pidgin Ukrainian, because I still have to work hard on my Ukrainian, so let me just speak in the language which is usual to me. Let me start by saying that the first days of the war were the days of losses, first losses, because we started losing enterprises virtually 4 days after the full-blown aggression was launched against Ukraine. And this began to, of course, move into Ukraine from the east, and this movement was too fast for us to reply to it. Of course, we had some plans of response previously developed before the 24th of February, and we had some different elements of emergency connections. We had different kinds of stocks and supplies for emergency time, but still the situation was changing way too much around us on the one hand. On the other hand, from day one of the war, as peaceful producers of bread, flour, different kinds of grain products, we became an infrastructural product, strategic one. When in the meetings of war administration, we were issued with different mobilization dispositions that we were obliged to comply with, it was extremely unusual for us. And complying with that, this was all up to us. So this was really hard time for us to deal with. This was really initial shock, denial, adaptation, denial again, and moving into an attempt to build a relatively common mode of work. At least we do not disrupt any of our deliveries, and all of this had to be done within 2 to 3 weeks. Am I right? Well, let me put it this way. It was a very heavy month indeed. Months of reorganizations. We had a month of having to build new connections, sourcing new supplies, because we are found in the east of Ukraine, and for us the main subject is the geography. Geography and remoteness, all of this is affecting us. I came from Zaporizhia yesterday in the east of Ukraine, and the new challenges for us are power generators supplying power and delivery, all of the raw materials. So we had to do it all on our own. The instruments of outsourcing that when we were creating the holding, unfortunately, had to be shed. We had a centralized IT check area of our own, but sometimes there was no communication between our facilities, production facilities. All of this functionality sometimes was completely out, so we had to exercise a high degree of decentralization. We determined that each of the enterprises was an independent aircraft carrier, if you like, and we determined frameworks and deadlines for them to operate within, and thus continue to operate. As of now, in the east, we are the last industrial producer. I'm not going to speak about volumes. Of course, there are some more to the north, because Kharkiv is getting rebuilt and restructured, reclaimed, but we are still one of the last industrial clusters, which ensures employment for a huge number of people. Thank you very much. By the way, your note concerning the geography of Ukraine is true. I don't think that any one of us knew the geography of Ukraine as well as we know it now. You know, just as we were listening to the address from Kherson, you cannot just imagine how close this is to our heart, because on the 11th, I was in a state of a semi-shock, because the first photograph, which was sent to me from Berislav by our security service against the sign of our company, when the armed forces of Ukraine were entering again this area, and when on the 12th, the next day, we produced the first batch of bread. We used liquefied gas for that. And today, my group is writing to me, today we cannot go, because that road that they used back then was working. But unfortunately, now everything is destroyed with rain and snow. So for us, geography today is is a very sensitive issue indeed. Thank you very much. Let us also speak about another big industry that Lyudmyla is here to represent. What is the major transformation that INTERPIPE has been going through? Well, we are still going through that, as you have aptly said, because on February 24th, we got all together as our management board, and we decided to create a special ad hoc committee, because 5 of our enterprises were standing still. It's in Dmytro, and we knew it was very close to the area of hostilities. All of our plants were not functioning. We tried to ensure the security for the employees, but that couldn't go on for long. We are an exporter, and our key markets are the U.S., the Middle East, it's the huge markets indeed, Asia, and we had thousands and thousands of piping in Odessa, in the Black Sea ports, and we understood that everything was stuck, but we had the projects, and these projects had to be fulfilled. So our logistics team, I think, managed to do incredible things. They found multiple ways to transport goods, so logistics was the key issue. first production was brought in huge lorries to the Ukrainian borders. It took us about 60 days sometimes to cross the border. We tried to do that on the railway, but it was over burdened. Then we tried to find a way to transport that via barges on the Danube to Constanța in Romania and all the way to the United States. So there were fascinating things, very interesting. We tried to do that via Danube, the Rhine, and to the northern Rhine. But then you remember in summer, everything was very, very shallow. So this was a huge challenge indeed. But the company managed to restructure itself. And in April, we launched the wheels and the piping, special mills for that. And now we work up to the 50% of our capacity, because there is another understandably challenge. It's our clients, customers. We had a lot of long-term oil-producing companies, and all of the goods are usually insured, but the risk from Ukraine cannot be underwritten. So if Ukraine cannot guarantee the delivery in time, we'll lose these contracts. So we did lose a lot of contracts, and now we are working on spot prices and spot. We try to keep up all of our markets. We deliver to the Middle East, to Turkey, Azerbaijan. We try to find ways for that. However, we try to preserve these exports so that after the war is over, we can go back to our customers as usual. And the third challenge, I think, and my fellow partners understand, we have substantial cuts in terms of power, and now we are learning to work in terms of making metalworks. We're changing, introducing businesses working overnight during the weekend, so everything is highly changeable, but that's the only way that we can operate nowadays.
Thank you so much. That is very true. Electrical supply is our blood. I have never heard that many questions from people. Why do cell towers not work without electricity? Because the cell towers rely on electricity. Dmytro, MHP. I think the logistics was also a challenge, but was there anything else you had to change in order to make sure your business survives? And like you told me during the break, well, everything's fine. Well, everything is fine does not mean that it was easy. You have to understand that it's the fourth year that MHP is undergoing transformation. Even when you introduced us, you called us an agricultural company. We're no longer an agricultural company. We're a culinary company that extends its vertical integration. We want to feed people. We're no longer just the producers of chicken. We produce beef, vegetables. We have a retail sector. We have horeca. We are so used to living in this undecisive stage. At the same time, the start of the war actually sped up decision-making processes. So we cannot just pause our business. We cannot put on a brake. The chicken is growing. We cannot just tell the chicken, stop, don't grow. We have to restructure things. Wait for us to kick out the occupation forces. So for the first few hours, the top management of the company chose the role of supporting, ensuring the food security of the country. And that meant that we had to keep our business afloat. We have to take care of our people. We have to restructure our logistics, because we don't only have the external logistics on the export, we also have internal logistics. We had to feed our people all across the country. And in places where the need was exponentially greater, in Sumy, for example, as well as where the need was greater because of consumption rates in the West, we didn't stop working for a minute. For example, even in Sumy, our grocery stores were the only grocery stores where people could buy things. And people are still grateful for it. So something that has become a key lesson for us was this new level of anti-fragility, the ability to make quick decisions, the ability to be agile, to restructure. The decision-making time has decreased greatly. And now, since May, let's say, since mid-May, our HQ has readapted. We are adapted to this new normal. This skill, this ability to restructure the paradigm of today, we've kept this skill. And it really helps. It helps us transform the company into the future, and our transformation is ongoing. We continue investing, continue opening new offices, so we're on the way. Great. So there were certain challenges we had to tackle. Logistics, decentralization, loss of production facilities. Yevhen, your business is drastically different. You're not relying on production. But you have clients that have to be supported. So which challenges did Microsoft face in Ukraine? What did you have to solve? Thank you. Well, first of all, in regards to challenges, I would like to start by saying that we try to prepare ourselves. There were many strategies for us on what to do next, but it's impossible to be 100% ready for things like this. Our main challenge was the strategy and the possibility of knowledge transfer to our customers. Because since the very beginning, since February 24th, we approached our customers proactively, we approached the state proactively, and we held a number of sessions, including with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, with many CDTOs, where we highlighted the things that we need to do in order to first and foremost ensure security of our customers, ensure the safety of the teams and the safety of the distant work of the teams. On the other hand, our obligation was also to ensure the right of students to education. So these technological challenges, these rapid knowledge exchange challenges were amongst the main challenges that we faced. Over the course of the last couple of months, I had many discussions with my colleagues from CIU organizations, both from the state and the private sector. And if I would boil it down to a couple of phrases, I would say that what we plan to do in terms of digital transformation, we had strategies that we had successfully realized, but the plans that we wanted to implement over the course of 2-4 years, we had to implement those plans in a couple of hours. All right. We also have cases like that. We had the project that took over 7 years, but due to war, we were able to implement the project in 3 days. It pushed us. Right, cooperative business. Look at that. So what did I want to say? Our panel here is representing businesses that survived. So we can fall in this survivor bias. Because the recipes that we have, they worked out, and that's why we are represented here. But I'm sure that over all this time, you had made multiple decisions, and some of those were failures. I would like you to share the failure decisions that you have made and how you tackled those. To give you a little bit of time, I'm going to tell you what we've done with Kyivstar. So we had to provide the people the ability to keep communicating despite the difficult system. We have contract customers, and they have this credit. So we extended the credit to let people talk more. And so people keep talking, they keep talking more. And we see that the debt that people have on their phones are tens of thousands of hryvnia. And we understand that if we keep doing that, if we ask people to pay us now, to pay their debts, so what they do is they throw away their card because it's easy, right? So we had to work with every single customer and say, let's look at the debt that you have on your phone. How much can you pay right now? And for us, the key takeaway was we have to warn people. If we're doing good, even if we're extending their credit line, we still have to make sure that they know what we're doing because it can fail us real quickly. So Borys, did you make a mistake, and what did you do with it? The thing is, looking back at the last 9 months, I can't really change anything that has been done. Something was based on intuition, some decisions were logical in terms of development of the company. Before the war, we have approved the plan to build a solar panel system on every roof of every plant that we have. We froze that program on February 24th. We launched it on March 6th. Congratulations for that decision. Right, so one station is very successful, one is in pipeline, two are being currently constructed. I regret that we actually made that delay. We should have done that faster, but we didn't understand how fast those would be destroyed by missile strikes. There were many leadership decisions. Some of them were quite chaotic because the idea of strategy disappeared right away, of course. So we were first moving, and to quote a famous TV anchor, we were first moving through operational steps, 2 to 3 week increments, and then operational tactical increments, 1 to 2 months, and then we came back to strategy, to building a strategy. I can't really say that we didn't make any mistakes, but to be honest, none of those were really grand. In terms of business strategy, if it wasn't for the war, I would still do the same things. And knowing how things turned out, I would have maybe been braver in a lot of my decisions. At the very start, we launched a system of keeping awareness, maintaining awareness among our top management. I think we should have made that better. We should have made sure that our awareness system was greater and was better informing our workers. The second mistake that I can see as a CEO and a co-owner of the company, we have to talk to our shareholders more. And I can say that for sure, especially with shareholders who are far away. They have different risk assessment, they have different understanding of what is happening. And so it is very important to explain to them of what is happening right now, of what we are living through here. Maybe that would have enabled us to save a lot of energy in discussions. Right, that is correct, because as you have said, the reality abroad is very different, and it takes a while to explain decisions. Because when we say we want you to invest into Ukraine, they call us insane. But we know what the situation actually looks like. Vasyl, did you make a mistake that you can actually talk about publicly? You can publicly acknowledge. As I had said, we had drastic changes in logistics. And so for the first month of the war, we did our contracting because we're a Ukrainian company and we entered a different market of supply. And so most of the contracts have been signed already. Everything is planned. So it was very difficult for the Ukrainian companies to find suppliers. So what we could do, we could agree to sign really quick contracts, right? So in essence, despite certain unacceptable conditions like price, for example, we started contracting 100% of available resources all over Europe. We had European supply chains, which are a lot longer than the supply chains we had prior to 2021. Just for you to understand, before the beginning of the war, pipe supplies took 3 to 4 days to arrive to Ukraine. From the closest Belarusian plants, where a majority of the resource was coming to Ukraine, large shipments took like 7 days. And now the supply chain was extended to 2 months. So beside the fact that at one point all contracts were delayed or all the contracts now became prepayment contracts and supply chains have extended drastically. We had one contract. It's very interesting that my colleague from INTERPIPE has also said that they encountered this problem. We've purchased in Amsterdam, Antwerp, and quite an expensive resource, quite an expensive product. And the logistics of supply was also very complex. It had to come by small barges, because rain is actually very shallow. So it had to be moved from small barges to Germany, and then it had to be brought to a single terminal. And then in that terminal, it was loaded onto docks, onto train carts. And there's also a line for train cart loading. There are also people having holidays. The business activity is very high there. So the loading docks are also very busy. And this supply chain has extended so much. Just for you to understand, we paid for these resources. Our first payments were made in mid-April, and the last resource was supplied here in October, if I'm not mistaken. So can you imagine the length of supply chain? Right, we're not talking about the entirety of our order, but it was supplied in increments. Rain became shallow. But who would have thought that? Who could possibly think that a river that is being so actively used for transportation could become shallow, and so no ships were moving through the river? I can't really say that it's a leadership mistake, but it cost us a fortune. I believe that everybody can agree with me here. Like you said, you've made emotional decisions in regards to your clients. Of course, we've made certain emotion-driven decisions in regards to our clients. Those are primarily regarding unlimited orders for the state sector. Thanks God, the state approached our contracts with decency, and so despite certain funding complications, everything went back to more or less normal. The government was paying us according to our contracts outside of tenders to expedite the procurement procedures. This is relatively okay. I believe that the decisions that were made, they were made accordingly to the situation and to the circumstances that we ended up in at the point of making the decision. So to say that we should not have purchased this resource knowing the supply chain issue, honestly, I can't say that we would have said that, because at that point the deficit was so high on the market that the decision was obvious. It was the only decision. And even though the supply chain complicates the process, it didn't really matter at that point. So in fact, we're talking about the fact that it's not so much a mistake as much as it is a response to the existing circumstance and how quickly we can change those circumstances. Actually, Vasyl also touched on a very important topic, how the state responds and how we as business are showing very high level of resistance, and the government as well. I lived for a while abroad, and the things that surprised my host family the most was, do you have a card? And do you have money on that card? And I'm saying, yes, I do. And you can pay for something with that money? Yes, because it's capitalism. Capitalism is winning the old Russian system. And so we survived, and we will survive. We will live well as long as business works, and as long as the state works, and it works, which is great. Dmytro, did you make a mistake that you're not proud of but can share? I don't know, I keep analyzing, keep thinking, I really want to name something. And look at all of you, no one made any mistakes. Okay, so our CEO didn't run away, right? We didn't start ignoring our people, we didn't fire anybody, we helped our team. The only thing, I can't really call it a mistake, we didn't believe that the war would actually happen. On February 23rd, in the hall, Yuri Kosyuk made a presentation. He said, I don't believe that they will invade, and even if they do, they can't reach anything. It's insane. On February 23rd, it was approximately at lunchtime. In the morning, we're sitting there in his office, and there were a few people having a conversation, and Mr. Kosyuk said that. So we didn't really have a plan. to react to the invasion, to evacuate our personnel. Can you really say that it is a mistake that led to something horrible? Not really. Because all the decisions that we made afterwards were made quickly. If we made a mistake, we corrected right away. It had very agile, iteration-based decision-making. And if I analyze it right now, looking back, I don't really think I would change anything. All right, what can I say? The business did great. We're not going to discuss any mistakes or any failures, but nonetheless, each of us, we govern a large number of people, and so the war impacted us not only as businesses, but also as leaders. Igor, what should not a leader do during the war? Your main lesson learned. All right, so in regards to failures, actually agree with Dmytro. Right, we understand everybody pretends they're saints, sure. We didn't really make mistakes. Maybe there was one. We should have started preparation earlier. A few weeks earlier, but we were the first in Ukraine to restore the development. It wasn't that we didn't believe, it was just an issue of people. A lot of people left, and so it took us 2 weeks to gather the team back together. So what a leader should never do in the war? Of course, a leader should never abandon their company. The company should see the leader, look at the leader, and the leader should lead. If there is times of war, there has to be a commander, right? Everybody has to abandon their own ambitions, their agreements or disagreements. Everybody has to look in the same direction. And in front of them in that direction, there should be a leader who gives clear orders on what has to be done. That's when people come down and start working. Everybody was shocked after the beginning of the war. Come on. I was shocked, everybody else. But we moved on from that. And I want to add something about what you said about the cards and the prepayments. A lot of our industries, a lot of the social support agencies in Ukraine has worked so much better than I've ever expected. For example, the oil and gas, the food industry, the bank system. I swear to you, I was so surprised at how well everything works, how resilient it is. Take a look at our roads. Just a week ago, we were in Kharkiv, and they told us, look, there was a missile strike right here, and there was no mark left. Of course, we do have things to pay attention to, but I'm really glad that, in my opinion, Ukraine is much better than we thought.
That's why I presume that the leader must always run, lead, and mustn't become invisible. Thank you. So Ukraine is much better, and people think much more highly about Ukrainians in the world. While talking about Ukrainians, this is nation one for me. We are gods. We are divinities, ideal businesses and ideal Ukrainians. Well, previously, I used to think that we had multiple programs. However, now I think that this nation, maybe it lacked a certain kind of a boost or a stress, not perhaps this bad, but still people needed to see something that they are worth. They needed to see their worth. And I'm sure that the knowledge that we are getting now will definitely have a powerful boost and propel us very further into the future. So what mustn't a leader do during war, Yevgeny? Well, I will not say that we mustn't panic and lose our heads. We have already gained this lesson. This losing your head will always happen. You know this joke that on February 24th, Ukrainians don't run, everything will be wonderful, everything will be perfect. On the 10th of November, Ukrainians stop shooting Iranian drones, keep calm. It's not even a joke, it's true. However, on the other hand, we all saw how everybody was at a loss. But this also goes in side by side with composure, something that we have been observing over the last months. On the one hand, we are aware that this is a very fine lesson. We have to be vocal enough in order to get the communication across. You mean vocal within the country, both within and without the country. One simple example to give you, we as an organization prepared and analyzed the cyber threats that began to materialize in 2021. And very actively, we began to communicate with the state special connection services, and in order to forestall and provide teams on cyber security, in order for them to have all the necessary information to provide security and defense. That's one thing. On the other hand, it's vital to have a necessary amount of data in order to change priorities. I'm talking about finance, personnel, as well as the assets that the companies possess. Based on the examples, I can share with you and say that there are numerous organizations who very speedily began to kick in their cloud analytics systems in order to get both structurized and unstructured data from different databases on the basis of which leaders can make decisions. And another point to mention is that a leader's role is critical. And in this respect, I would like to extend my gratitude to all those who are sitting next to me and those who are facing me in this hall, that we're still staying here. We keep working, and leaders still are side by side with their teams. Yes, thank you very much. That's really important. Lyudmyla, with the example of INTERPIPE, what shouldn't leaders have done? Or yes, we talked about that, and we decided it's best not to share with you, but I decided to do it. Well, finally, it's coming out, right? So when discussing, we said that we had a downtime of 1 month in the first place because it's a big enterprise. These were bomb shelters, and a lot of the population lived in these bomb shelters. We provided them with the foodstuffs, water, etc. And so we couldn't work. It's not that we were afraid of working, but we were fearful of the lives of the people. There may have been some wounded, etc. But unfortunately, what that set us back to, we have a segment which is machine building. We work with heavy machine builders, Wickhardt, Lyudmyla in Germany. These are machinery builders. And for them, INTERPIPE is 50% in their portfolio of orders. It's a big share indeed, as it turned out. So when we put our operations on stall, there were communications with our customers. We were daily in touch with them. We told them where Dmytro was, where the war was going on. So now they know very well about Dnipro and Nikopol geography-wise. So we told them that we couldn't work. It was risky. And in this time, unfortunately, they brought into their country their Chinese production. And now they understood that they cannot just deal with the Chinese production. Ukrainian products are better, so they want to come back to us. But unfortunately, there is this segment, because this downtime prevented us from working better and ensure greater economic stability. Talking about the role of the leader. Well, definitely this has to remain in Ukraine. You cannot be a leader and stay outside of the country, because everyone looks up to you. Everyone expects you to say something important. So our management board has daily meetings. We have it at 10 o'clock in the morning, and this morning we had it likewise. Even at weekdays, we had our meetings at 10 o'clock. Security service would tell us everything is okay, stable, or there were some hits, the shelling happened, whatever impact was on the population. So we are in a city, and we say that CEO is like our steel leader, not just like a military leader. He's a steel military leader, so he has to be approachable. He has to be transparent. He or she has to be easily understood by the people. It takes a lot of communication. I'm responsible for communication, so twice a day, we have these mail drops done to all of the employees. So if the people don't have these mail drops, even at the level of the shop floor, they can call you and say, what's wrong? Especially in the first months, it was extremely valuable for us to communicate. All of the decisions have to be clear, and that seems to be the most sensitive as a topic. Well, you reminded me about one of the mistakes that our company made. We provided dormitory spaces. Some 300 people came to our Lviv office, and they organized their shower rooms, food corners, cooking. Everything was done in shifts. And 2 months on, we realized that people were not looking for the ways to find another accommodation. They were living within their office spaces, and it was strange that sometimes you come wearing your smart clothes and people come out of shower rooms in slippers and bathrobes, and we began to suggest finding that they should find some accommodation. But we had one person staying in our premises for 3 months with a cat in slippers and bathrobe coming out of the shower room. So we had to activate and act on it accordingly. So now let me ask Vasyl what a leader should and shouldn't do. As a leader, you have to stay with your people, first and foremost. People must see you. People must feel you. You have to be alive and kicking, living and breathing. All of the leaders have to be living and breathing, but not online or remote somewhere. The people working somewhere in a gas filling station, you have to go and see them, say, hi, hello, how is it going? Even without saying that, people have to see you, and they have to understand, be aware that you're here in Kiev, in Lviv, in Lviv, Rivno. You can drop on them at whatever moment. So people have to be conscious of the fact that the leadership is here. No one has escaped. Just like I can be working at a petrol station somewhere in Kiev, Dnipro, or in Zaporizhia, in Chernivtsi. Leaders work likewise in their jobs. And our first working meeting was, of course, online, because the war broke out very early in the morning. And we knew what that would mean for us immediately. That supplies from different corners would immediately be slashed. We knew that there would be some supplies carried through the seaports. And the first working meeting, as I said, on day one of war was online. It took a while for everybody to get together in one Zoom room, but then 90% of top management that we have for about 4 months were on daily meetings, collected together in one place. It's extremely important to feel that we are all, because especially when it requires quick decision-making, when some changes in a certain area are required, like yesterday you worked in one way, but from today on you will have to work in another way. But how? In what way? It's not quite clear. So accordingly, everyone has to be within this context, to be on the same page. But in our context, in our industry, unfortunately, very frequently online doesn't mean that you will be immersed in a context. You have to be present physically in the working meeting. You have to hear and pick up what each individual says, see the eyes of your interlocutors, the responses, reactions to different proposals issued by different professionals who are really savvy about the things. So maybe at such critical moments, being together will guarantee the quality of decision-making of such teams. This quality will definitely be really sturdy. And I guess we've been able to see that via the examples of our companies, our competitors, our suppliers, when de facto people got scattered and they thought that they would run the company successfully remotely. And they created this kind of an illusion for themselves, and there was no successful management or running of the company that could have been done this way. Thank you. So our discussion is running to its end. There's the final question that I'm going to ask each of the panelists. So try to be succinct, but still. When I look at these 9 months that we have lived, this business as usual mode has changed drastically. For instance, in month, we spoke about whether we should buy antidotes for our engineers who are based in Zaporizhia or in Mykolaiv, because there was a threat, a gas attack. Then everybody started collecting gas masks, because we were told that we have to wear and carry gas masks, especially in our cars. And when I have to cross the border line, all of the border patrollers usually ask us whether what that is and why I have to. So the bulletproof vests, etc. So my question is, post-war, how do you think your businesses will operate? What things will remain from the war? Will we revert to the pre-war times, or will some things change forever? So this is a really big, voluminous question, but this one still goes to you, Borys. In addition to that, everything will be okay, clearly. Yeah, we will definitely take out bulletproof vests out of our cars and gas masks, and we will get some space, a greater space for Prosecco probably, and for sports gear. Yes, very much so. Something will still remain. This injection of fear that we have received and anxiety for our businesses will still remain with us. And it goes without saying that changing the model of security systems development, energy provisions, energy supplies will be inculcated in our mind, and we will also be very highly mindful of having cash supplies for a few months ahead of time. So the things that have become a norm of life for us right now. You ask about what leaders shouldn't do. I think that all of us gathered in this room know well enough from their own experience what charismatic leadership style is all about, and probably for this reason there are no mistakes. Because CEOs all walk on a fine line, thin ice, and every decision taken is recoils on the leader. So, of course, sound tools of democracy, you see GA and corporate rules of government, all of that will have to be reverted in the full scope. But we have to remember that during martial law, in the time of war, a lot of the things will remain in our memory, and it will help us to face the situations accordingly. So speed, however, still reverting to a greater speed of democracy. This is the main idea. Yes, thank you. Dmytro, please. MHP post-war. MHP post-war. An interesting question indeed. Look, we have been vaccinated. This inoculation of fear has been injected in us. And as a consequence, of course, we will be more daring, bolder, because you should understand MHP is the company is headed by a founder, and he is decisive indeed. And of the things that are interesting, well, we don't have marketing department anymore. We slashed it all together. Wow! Gosh, how could that be? That's horrid. But still, MHP is getting transformed. We want to feed people, so we want to know all about our customers. We want to help them to become, we want to become this huge service company. So now we have a consumer love creation department. This is what we call it. And this is something that we would have probably arrived at during the time of transformation anyway, but this war and this crisis situation, this crunch situation expedited this decision-making. So marketing department is no department that we have. We are not going to think about what to do with it, but instead we will be thinking about how to make sure that the people who interact with us keep being happy, satiated, full, and have more free time for life. Free time for life, that's wonderful. Now, Lyudmyla, please. During this wartime, we have learned to be very much flexible and agile. We, as a huge industrial industry, didn't used to be as agile as now, because we learned to work both at night, and our personnel learned to come at short notice, and we learned to deliver our shipments within the ways that we didn't even know about previously. So after war, we will take all of this experience, we'll definitely record it, we will create these anti-crisis models, and this will be our valuable cargo. We had COVID, now the war, and now we are also anticipating zombie apocalypse. So this agility and flexibility will definitely come in handy. Thank you very much. Igor, please. I agree that agility and flexibility are the most important factors. Diversification of risks is another thing that basically cautious people like myself are always aware of. But it's not enough of being cautious. We used to live in a paradigm that war would never hit us. But with such a stupid dorky neighbor, unfortunately, we must always be mindful of that. And I'm sure that our life will be very much like on the brink, like in Israel, and we must be ready for that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, now we will definitely go down in history, and nobody will say, where is that Ukraine? Now everybody knows, yes, Uruguay and Ukraine are entirely different countries, fortunately enough, and unfortunately. And I think that not only the Klitschko brothers and Shevchenko, the football player, there are numerous people that the whole world knows about who hail from Ukraine. It's one of the positive experiences. We must look for positivity even in the midst of most negative events. So if people didn't know where Ukraine was, now they know where Snihurivka is. Not only Snihurivka, but lots of other villages and small towns. Thank you. Yevhen, please. Microsoft and the lessons learned. Takeaways that the company will take in the future.
I'm convinced, dear colleagues, that we'll have a positive fixation on the notion of safety and security. I'm not only talking about physical security, I'm also talking about digital security. Because all of us are thinking about how we secure our data. How do I make sure that my data center keeps working? If I have to move real quick somewhere really far away, how do I make sure that I reestablish my data center? That's on one hand. On the other hand, quite a few organizations have attempted to fall into new trends in terms of analytics, and I think they will grow more in that direction. Many leaders have understood that it is possible to make decisions faster and more efficiently using digital systems. And all of this brings us to a very interesting outcome. The more digitalized we are, the more transparent we are. The more transparent we are, the more opportunities we create in terms of both foreign and local investments. Thank you so much, Vasyl. OKKO and war. OKKO after war. What did this war show us? It showed us that being a large company is not always good. Being a large company localized in one spot is not great. It might be effective in terms of scaling up or down. It might be effective in terms of expenditures or leadership. But as the reality showed us today, it is very dangerous. So our business, which consists of a lot of small localized entities, turned out to be more resistant to stress than, for example, a steel business, where the destruction of two leading plant slashed 70% of income. So we will definitely stick to this model, the diversification model, as Igor said. But we have been naturally diversified because that's the nature of the business, of many discrete spots, and we'll stick to this model in the future. What else has been laid bare? Since we're selling things that are very easily flammable, they're quickly flammable, we have to be honest with ourselves. A Ukrainian business has always been skeptical about any rigid technical conditions that were that were provided to us by firefighters, by emergency services. Business was usually ignoring those requirements, but the reality showed us that we should not ignore those risks and those warnings. It may not be due to the fact that we really wanted to oblige by these regulations, these fire safety rules, but since 2003, we've been working with international funding institutions. And so beside those financing conditions, we always had the ecological improvement plan. And so according to that ecological improvement plan, we always had to abide by certain processes, certain requirements that were not necessarily economically beneficial to us, but we had to do them because those were the conditions of our cooperation, those were the condition of our funding. And so over many years, we had been investing a large amount of money into fire safety and environmental safety of our facilities. Of course, we didn't do it 100%. Like any other Ukrainian, we've been looking for shortcuts. We've been saying, oh no, we definitely don't need this. We almost don't need that. But we had to abide by some of those requirements, right? And so we did spend a lot of money. So during missile strikes, we've noticed that this is something that we have to do. We have to abide by those fire safety regulations. So now we know for sure. We're unfortunately incapable to do it en masse right now, but we know that if we are to open new facilities, we will definitely abide by all regulations. The fire safety system, the environmental safety system, because first of all, it saves lives of our employees. It protects our product. It protects the facilities from total destruction. So it is very, very important. I believe that my colleagues from other industries, they will also have a different perception of that. Maybe their product burns slower, but usually everything burns well. Maybe Morshinska, the water company, the bottled water company, will not pay heed to this, but a lot of companies will pay more and more heed with years and years to security and safety. So let's draw some conclusions. Ukrainian business is a great example of resistance. Ukrainian businessmen are perfect. Ukrainians are divinities. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to Ukrainian business.